Hey there. Before we get into today's episode, just know this one is raw, it's real, and at times, it's ridiculous. I talk about exes, emotional wounds, and how the boy who's obsessed with TV finally shows you exactly what he meant by that through his favorite show, Grey's Anatomy. But I also talk about growth, about finally understanding what peace really feels like. So whether you've ever stayed too long in a relationship, confused breadcrumbs for a buffet, or got a last-minute apology text mid-concert while Meg Thee Stallion was on stage, this episode's for you. Because healing isn't always pretty, but sometimes it's hilarious. All right, let's get into it. Hey there. My name is Greg. This is a podcast, and honestly, it's a lot. When I first came up with the idea for the show, I really thought it would lean more into guest episodes. You probably caught that in the intro episode, right? Well, that was the plan, but I also said the podcast would probably be constantly evolving, and I meant that. While having guests is definitely the goal, what I didn't expect was how much I'd love doing these solo episodes. So here we are, just me and you again. The boy who's obsessed with TV is about to show you what he really meant by that. My favorite show of all time is Grey's Anatomy. And listen, if you got opinions about that, keep them. I don't care. Nothing you say is going to change my mind. I don't care that the medicine isn't accurate. I'm not watching it to learn how to perform surgery, girl. That's not really the point. And if you don't like it, that's okay. This isn't a Grey's podcast. Like I said in the last episode, this is a me podcast. And in the coming episodes, we're going to dive into the shows, the movies, the characters, fictional or otherwise, that shaped who I am. The ones that held up a mirror. The ones that gave me language for things I didn't know how to say yet. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to start today's episode by describing a scene from Grey's Anatomy. It's one I've seen a million times. But recently, it hit me in a way I never expected. Like, I had never really seen it before. The scene is from Season 3, Episode 13, Great Expectations. And watching it from the other side of healing made it land in a way I wasn't ready for. Meredith and Derek have a fight at the hospital. He snaps at her for no real reason, so she leaves without him. Later, he shows up at her house, trying to make things right, and he tells her he knows he was out of line, that sometimes people mess up in relationships, but that doesn't mean you stop talking to each other. She's still hurt, though. She points out that he yelled at her and walked away, and now he's just there. He reassures her that this is what showing up looks like. He tells her this is how it works. You fight, and then someone apologizes. And boyfriends can be jerks sometimes. Meredith, still unsure and a little shaken, asks, well, how am I supposed to know that? He looks at her and gently asks, you've never done this before. And she says quietly, no, I've never done this before. That line, that moment, hit me like a ton of bricks. Because despite being in 2 major relationships in my life, I realized I had never really done that before either. No one had ever shown up for me after a fight. I was always the one trying to fix things, even when I wasn't the one who broke them. Disclaimer, nothing I say in this episode is meant to hurt anybody. This is a story from my point of view because telling it helps me. It helps me process the pain and start to heal. I suggest that people involved do the same. There's 2 sides to every story, and I know I was stubborn. I know I could be a major bitch. I know I was obsessive. I was clingy at times. But I'm really trying to understand why, so I don't repeat the same mistakes I've made before. This is me being accountable, not cruel. The scene from Grey's Anatomy brought back so many moments from both relationships, where I was the one pulling all the emotional weight, while my partners treated me like I was too much, or too difficult, when most of the time, I was just asking for the bare minimum. I used to think I was hard to talk to. I really did. Because people like my first ex would shut down and go quiet. I'd ask what was wrong, and he'd lie. He knew I could tell, he knew I could feel the shift, and he would still say nothing was wrong. And then, when he finally did tell me what it was, days later most of the time, after the silence had already done the damage, he'd get mad at me that I didn't receive it well. And that's when the twist always came. I just feel like I can't talk to you. I just feel like you don't make it safe. But I was never the one withholding. I was never the one punishing someone with silence. I was asking, genuinely asking, because I cared. And somehow that made me the problem. Looking back, I realized I wasn't hard to talk to. I was just asking for honesty from people who weren't ready to give it. And people who blame me when it hurt to hear it too late. In that kind of dynamic, it teaches you to apologize for asking, to walk on eggshells around your own intuition, to believe that emotional distance is something that you created when really it was handed to you. But I don't do that anymore. I don't chase clarity. I don't beg for honesty. If you can't talk to me, that's not my fault, and I'm done carrying the blame for conversations that you refuse to have. The major difference is, even when I was upset, I was still always trying. They would punish me, because that was easier than facing the reality that a lot of the time, they couldn't even do the bare minimum. I remember this camping trip towards the end of one of my relationships. I told my ex I wasn't going to go because I didn't have the money. Without hesitation, and without me even asking, he offered to pay so I could come. I obviously took him up on it. And then when the trip rolled around, one of my friends said they'd take care of groceries if everyone chipped in a certain amount. Easy enough, right? But on the day we were leaving, my ex asked me, "So what are you going to do for food?" And I was confused because I thought he offered to pay, but I guess his plan was to chip in with the group for groceries, but not cover my part. And I just stood there like, what did you think I meant when I said I couldn't afford it? But I just told him, well, if you can't pay for my part of the groceries, then I can't go, which is fine. I already said I wouldn't. But he ended up bringing groceries for the two of us so we wouldn't have to chip in with the group. Mind you, this man made double my salary, if not more. He was not hurting for money. He could have paid for both of our parts easily. But I just remember thinking, why would you offer to pay for someone who said they couldn't afford the trip if you didn't actually mean the whole trip? Because a weekend away, it's not just the room, it's everything that comes with it. And I wish that was the only bump in the road that weekend, but it only got worse from there. When we got there, I went into the closest town with a smaller group of friends to play Pokemon Go. I think it was Teddy Ursa Community Day or something. When we got back, my ex was napping, not out of the usual, so I just kept hanging out with everyone. The couple of friends from episode 2 offered me a little bit of their shroom chocolate, not enough to make me trip like crazy or anything. When my ex woke up and I casually mentioned that they gave me some, you could tell he was annoyed. He didn't say anything, he just went back to sleep. While he was in the room, the group offered me some of the spaghetti they had made using the grocery pool. I said yes, obviously. It was there, and I was hungry. When he woke up again, he was even more pissed. That's when the silent treatment officially kicked in. He stayed in the room most of the day and evening, and I did check on him multiple times. And every time he said nothing was wrong. And when I didn't believe him, because obviously something was wrong, he got mad at me. I did my best to still have fun, but it was fucking awkward, and everyone could tell something was off. And when they asked what was going on, I honestly had no idea at the time. I was just trying not to make it worse. As the night went on, there was dancing, campfires, stargazing, and then out of nowhere, my ex popped back up in a much better mood, and it was such a relief. We ended up having what I thought was a good rest of the night. But here's the thing. He had taken a gummy while he was in the room. So yeah, he came back high, and that's where the good mood came from. Until the next day. When it was time to leave, his mood had snapped right back, and he had zero problem being mean to me in front of everyone as we were packing up to go. After an awkward car ride home, where me and a friend who rode home with us tried our best to keep the mood up by singing and having fun, he finally told me what was wrong. And I say finally because I had asked. So many times. And every time, he got mad that I didn't believe him. But this time, he let it out, and it turned into a full-on fight. He was mad that I just get things handed to me, that he was going to pay into the group groceries, but decided to bring food for the two of us, and I didn't even use it. When I explained that someone had offered me food, he acted like I should have turned it down. When I explained that he was locked in the room and I was tripping, so I couldn't exactly cook, he said he didn't care. He literally said, "That's what I get for putting someone over myself." And I just sat there, completely stunned. Like, I didn't even want to go camping in the first place after I realized I couldn't afford it. And why wouldn't you put your partner's needs ahead of your own? It's not my fault people are nice to me. That's not privilege. It's just kindness. And it wasn't a competition. But he made me feel so bad that I ended up sending my friend money for groceries I never asked for with money I didn't really have. I convinced myself I was the problem, that I should have planned better. But honestly, looking back, it felt like he was jealous of me, and he took it out on me in front of everyone. And yet still, I stayed. Like Meredith before that scene, I just accepted the chaos because I thought that's just how it was. I was so damaged, so afraid to lose people that I convinced myself I was the problem, when in reality, we should have been working together to find a solution. He wanted me to go so badly, and then he punished me the entire weekend for it. Watching that scene from Grey's Anatomy hit different this time because for the first time, I wasn't watching it from pain. I wasn't projecting. I wasn't hoping someone would show up for me like that. I was just watching it. And I realized that's a gift. To be able to return to your favorite show with new eyes. To sit in joy, not just survival. And it made me want to talk about what it took to get there. Because this episode, it's not about blame. It's about truth. I've had relationships that hurt me. I've also been the one who hurt. I've been stubborn. I've been a bitch. But I've also been soft and hopeful and honest in moments that didn't always make it out of the story. So this isn't dragging anyone. It's me putting words to the quiet parts of my healing because processing what happened isn't cruel. It's necessary. And this is the part where I stop rewriting my past to protect it from judgment and start telling it to understand myself better. Looking back at that relationship, there were so many other moments like that. Moments that hit a wound from childhood. Moments that made me feel like I was suffering on the inside because the person I loved wasn't just refusing to understand me. They were punishing me with silence. And I'm not proud, because in a lot of those moments, I broke through boundaries I shouldn't have. I did anything I could to stop the silence, to fix everything, even though most of the time, it made it worse. It was a vicious cycle. Well, all right, that's getting a little too real, so before I fully unravel, here's a quick word from our Totally Real sponsor. Are you hungry for love but keep ordering from the wrong restaurant? Do you and your partner have trouble getting on the same meal schedule? Well, do I have a product for you. Introducing Crumbs with a Z, a relationship supplement. When they can't give you the bare minimum, we help you pretend it's a feast. Crumbs with a Z is here to tide you over until that partner you love so much gets their shit together or someone better comes along. Just one dose, and suddenly, "Hey, I'm sorry I fell asleep" feels like a love letter. Silent treatments don't seem to last as long. And ghosting, oh honey, that's just a mystery begging to be solved. Side effects may include putting your partner's needs ahead of your own, crying yourself to sleep while they lay next to you, and being convinced they really are the one. Ask your doctor today if Crumbs with a Z is right for you. And if you're a real sponsor, ask yourself if this podcast is right for you, because I need some bread. I wanted to be better in my next relationship, and I think in some ways I was, especially when it came to sticking up for myself. But I kept trying to explain how I felt, and it never seemed to land. After a while, I started wondering if maybe I was asking for too much. Maybe I was being dramatic. But I wasn't. I was just being ignored. And when your needs are constantly dismissed, it doesn't just hurt your heart, It messes with your head. The truth is, I knew almost from the beginning that we probably shouldn't be dating. I felt bad because we were friends, and I didn't want to hurt someone I cared about. And I really did think I loved him. So I stayed, and I tried, and I kept trying, even when it started costing me. Instead of realizing that my needs were being ignored, I started wondering again if I was the problem. And once you're in your head like that, the red flags don't look so red anymore, even when they're screaming at you. An example of this is when I went out of town for 2 weeks to spend Christmas with my family. This man called me on Christmas crying about how much he missed his ex. I know, girl. And honestly, I did try to understand. We got together fast. There were blurred lines before we made it official. But still, come on, dude. I'm sitting there, missing him, feeling sad because we're apart, and he's calling me to talk about him? It was a clear moment of him putting his feelings over mine, and me convincing myself it wasn't a big deal because of our circumstances, because I understood the context, because I always tried to hold space for the gray. But the truth is, I was the only one thinking about those things, even though I wasn't the only one in them. And when I got back from that trip, I had made plans to go out with our friend group. He was supposed to work late, so I'd figure I'd see him after. But he ended up getting off early, and instead of coming to see me after 2 weeks apart, he went to a bar with his friends closer to his house. He said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And that night, I had taken shrooms again, before all of that happened, but this time, I was actually tripping. Hard. And I did not handle it well. I had a full-blown public breakdown in the middle of the Dallas Eagle. And all of our friends, they just sat there and watched. No one really said anything helpful. No one really checked on me afterward. I felt so alone, surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, with a boyfriend who couldn't even be bothered. And still, I convinced myself I was the problem. Like somehow I was too much, or not enough, or both at the same time. In my first relationship, he was the one who pushed us to be open. He made that clear from the very beginning. That's what he wanted. And I had never been in a relationship before. I was so desperate for love, I thought, how hard can it be? Extremely hard, apparently. I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly, but I did handle it a lot better than he did. Because the issue was never just the open relationship. It was communication, or the lack of it. He held me to standards he didn't even meet himself. When he wanted to explore, he usually got the opportunity. But when I did, I had to jump through hoops to meet his needs first. Or he'd start a fight so I wouldn't end up hooking up with whoever I was trying to. And when I pointed that out, he said it was just a coincidence. But it wasn't. And instead of admitting that, he made it about me. Like I was the one being unfair. When in reality, it was him not being able to handle the very thing he was so sure he wanted. It was him putting his needs over mine, over and over, and then getting mad at me the few times I tried to put mine over his. And while the next relationship I was in wasn't open, the theme continued. Like when I was visiting home for a couple weeks again. I work from home, so at the time I tried to maximize time with my family when I came to visit, because I used to only get weekends off unless I had PTO. He was at my apartment the day I was leaving and didn't have to work that night, so I figured we'd hang out, maybe have dinner, spend a little time together before I left for 2 weeks. But he slept until 1 and then tried to leave around 2:30, right in the middle of my workday. And when I got upset, he said, "I'm supposed to have dinner with my mom." The mom you live with, bro? You're not going to see me for 2 weeks, and instead of spending a few hours with me, you want to have dinner with your mom? And then he barely texted me the whole weekend because he was mad at me for getting upset. And yet again, I convinced myself I was the problem, that I should have told him my plan about wanting to hang out. But the truth is, I shouldn't have had to. He should have wanted to, without me asking. Another moment with him, he was coming over after work one day, so I got the apartment all cute, set the lights just right, put on one of my favorite jockstraps and a little bandana headband, sat on the couch with a drink in my hand and a drink ready for him, thinking I looked so sexy, thinking he'd want to take a picture. Instead, he walked in, went straight for the drink, and started bitching about work, like he didn't even see me. And my feelings were hurt. So I told him I thought he might take a picture or something. And he said, "Babe, I would never think to do that." And in that moment, my heart broke a little because I thought, well, I would have, but maybe I can't expect that from other people. That's what it's like to feel invisible in love. But the problem wasn't that he didn't think to do it in the first place. It was even after I told him what it would have meant to me, he still didn't think to do it. And stories like these might be a little embarrassing, but honestly, all you can do is laugh, America. Because if I can't laugh at the mess I lived through, I'll probably end up dating it again. I also wanted to share my experience so that if anyone listening feels like something isn't right, they might be onto something. If you've ever been made to feel like you were asking for too much just because you wanted time, effort, or basic respect, let me be clear. You weren't. The bar is in hell. And we're not doing limbo anymore, bitch. And now I want to introduce a segment called Tea Time, because your shady side deserves a chance to shine too. So picture this. My apartment didn't have water for 4 days, and I got so sick I ended up in the ER because I couldn't stop throwing up. My boyfriend, yeah, we were texting, but he never came to check on me, never brought me food, never offered water, never asked to come over at all. And he was off the night that I went to the ER. He had spent the day drinking at the pool with his friend and didn't work until 5 p.m. the next day. He easily could have came over. He just didn't. So I had to walk to the store alone, sick as hell, in the middle of June, in Dallas. So yeah, I dumped his ass. And fast forward 5 days to Wednesday, we were supposed to go to the Megan Thee Stallion concert with our friend. He hadn't said a single word since the breakup, so I figured, all right, I guess he's done with me too. Wrong. He bails on the concert, which he invited himself to and our friend paid for, mind you. And then mid-set, while Meg is up there with her hands on her knees shaking ass on her thought shit, I get a text. "I fucked up, I'm sorry," with a fucking crying emoji. Y'all, I felt the spirit of Meg Thee Stallion enter my body. I looked at the phone, looked back at the stage, and typed, "Girl, fuck you. How dare you text me now after 5 days when I'm having fun at the concert?" And I hit send. Because seriously, you ignored me through an ER trip, 4 days with no water, and now you want to drop a lame-ass apology during a bad bitch's concert? No. Fuck that. And again, girl, fuck you. And now back to the show. I used to be dark and twisty just like Meredith. I used to think love meant proving I was worth staying for, even if it hurt. But I'm not that person anymore. I don't need to be rescued. I just need to be seen. And I finally see myself. That's the thing that no one tells you about healing. It doesn't make the past go away. It just stops the past from being in charge. I used to think being in love meant never fighting, or always apologizing first, or earning your place back every time you spoke too loudly. But I'm learning now, you can be loved even when you're messy, even when you're scared, even when you've never done this before. I thought peace meant apologizing first, even when I didn't get one back, even when I didn't understand what I did wrong, if I did anything wrong at all. But I'm not doing that anymore. Peace isn't something I give to avoid being abandoned. Peace is something I get to have within myself, even if no one else shows up. Now for the final segment I like to call, what I should have said was ... And this time it's going to be a little different. Hey, I told you the pod was going to be evolving. This time, I'm saying what I should have said to younger me. Well, young adult me anyway. And then I'll end the episode reflecting on what I said. So here goes. What I should have said was ... Hey there, big guy. You don't have to give your body away to be loved. You're already worth it. And you always were. I say this because I look back at the time now and I see someone trying so hard, showing up, overextending, bending into shapes you were never meant to hold, just for a little love. And I didn't know it back then, but I was just begging to be chosen. And when they didn't pick me emotionally, I let them pick me physically. Because when you grow up repressed, when no one sees you, sex starts to feel like the only time you're wanted. And when that becomes proof of your worth, of course it gets addictive. I think that's why I fell in love with Grey's Anatomy. That's why Meredith's my favorite character, even if the internet doesn't always agree. She doesn't see the world in black and white, and most people forget about the gray areas. Maybe the universe gave me her first. So when I finally looked in the mirror and saw the version of me who was tired, who was unraveling, who kept showing up for people who couldn't meet me halfway, I'd have someone to hold on to. Because abandonment doesn't always look like someone leaving. Sometimes it looks like you giving yourself away in hopes that someone will finally stay. I wasn't ashamed of who I was. I was searching for safety, for connection, for proof that I mattered. And for a long time, the only place I thought I could find that was in being wanted. But now I know. I was never too much. I just needed more than I was given. And I finally believe I deserve it. So yeah, I explored. I made some mistakes. I had a lot of fun. And not a lot of people where I'm from get to say that. I got to experience a life free of diapers and sexual repression. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it. That does it for honestly what I should have said was ... Which brings us to the end of this week's episode. And if you want to continue the madness and you got a story that deserves to be told, whether it's funny, emotional, unhinged, or just a little too specific to explain to your group chat, I'd love to hear it. Check the link in my bio to find us on social media, streaming, or to pitch your story. It's all there, and it's always evolving, just like the pod. All right, I'm going to end the episode with another Meredith quote. But this time, I'm not saying it to Derek. I'm saying it to the world. You don't get to call me a whore. I'm all glued back together now. I make no apologies for how I chose to repair what you broke. See, I really am Meredith Grey. Meredith Gay, if you will. Anyways, until next time, honestly, that was a lot.